Hello from a hidden corner, my little cave in Barcelona. This is my office. Should I show you a little bit? That's it. And some shirts there. I think I've shown them before. Anyway, not important. Jump to what it's going to be an interesting, I feel, top 5 for you this week. Let's start with Barcelona-Sevilla. It was played at the Camp Nou, and we know that Barcelona are very strong in the Camp Nou. What we're starting to see is a Barcelona that don't need to play well to actually win. The kind of thing that Real Madrid has done for many, many years. In the past, we used to say that Barcelona needed to play well to actually create chances that allow them to win games and control games. Right now, that's not even necessary. The first half an hour, Sevilla were brilliant, very, very good. Created chances that came through the wings, both wings, through the centre. But Luke de Jong, their striker, the one who's supposed to finalise those chances, had 3 clear ones with 0-0. It did not happen for him. He even hit the post in the second half. It was too late because by then it was 3-0. Actually, let's start a little bit earlier. It was de Jong, who had been very disciplined in his position, decides to leave his holding position and move forward, beat a couple of lines of pressure. He didn't have to run very fast, but just by making that move, allowed to make a pass to Dembélé, I think it was. Dembélé gave it to Semedo, puts the cross in, and then Luis Suarez does an overhead kick with his left foot. So that meant 1-0 to Barcelona, and the other 2 goals came, the 3 in total, the first 3-0, came on just 8 minutes. With that, Sevilla just could not do much more. It was a Sevilla that actually went very brave on the game. The same Valdes said after the game that he expected a box-to-box kind of football. And when that happens, when you open up so much, when you risk so much, when you give up control in favour of this kind of organised chaos, Barcelona tend to win in situations like this, especially at home, because, of course, the finishing up front, the quality of the players up front means that they are better than most. So for Sevilla, disappointing because they come on the back of having beaten Real Sociedad and looking strong. They still are a strong side. You have to count on them for favourites to be top 4. They will fight with the Real Sociedad that's lost 2 games in a row, and they shown bits that may just be disappointing to the fans because Real Sociedad, on the top of the wave, when they were playing good football, they actually faced 2 teams that beat them, and that suggests perhaps that they need maturity that they haven't got as a team. Sevilla, hence being favourites alongside Villarreal. Those will be the teams that will be fighting for the 4th place because now you've got a very familiar look at the top of the table. You've got Real Madrid, you've got Barcelona, you've got Atletico Madrid, and Atletico Madrid is who we're going to talk about next. So Simeone decided to put a front 3, or at least the 3 players that we all want to see together. Diego Costa, Álvaro Morata and Joao Felix. How? Well, it was 2 forwards that were close to the centre-backs, trying to fix those centre-backs and running behind, running between the full-back and the centre-back, trying to be found by the passes of Joao Felix or Koke, who played behind, in between the lines, with a 3rd line of midfielders that had Thomas and Saúl, keeping an eye on any possible counterattacks from Valladolid. The different things that happened on that game, Joao Felix didn't touch the ball that often. The distribution of the ball of Atletico Madrid was slow, which meant that he actually didn't get to touch the ball in good conditions. So when he got it, he had to turn. He was surrounded by players. This Valladolid side was one that felt quite comfortable throughout the side because they had to do what they do best, which is to defend 2 lines of 4, very close together, not giving any gaps for Joao Felix and for Koke in those positions in between the lines. But another thing that happened is Morata, when he had the ball, he would just make his run forward, trying to stretch defenses, fighting against everybody. But Diego Costa, I'm not sure what he does. I'm not sure what he does anymore. He's not aggressive without the ball to trying to recover it. He's not aggressive with the rivals or with the referee, which used to help Atletico Madrid. He's not aggressive either when the ball gets into the box. So right now, you've got a a goal scorer who's not scoring goals, and Atletico Madrid needs the goals of Diego Costa as much as Morata. The best goal scorer so far this season, Joao Felix, with 3 in all competitions. Simply not enough. They've only scored 7 goals in the league. 7. A trend that you started to see last season when at this stage they had 9 goals, but in other years they had 21 at this stage of the season. So it is a team that doesn't create enough, that doesn't score enough, and I think Saúl said it after the game. Very disappointed he was with the performance of the side, because he said from the minute one we didn't go on the forefront, and without that this is a worse team. So Atletico Madrid still there, of course, and they have to improve on that, but the triangle of Joao Felix, Costa, Morata at the moment doesn't provide with excitement or even goals. It was 0-0 against Valladolid away. Before we get away from the top 3, I want to talk about Real Madrid. That will be the point 4 of this top 5. But before that, let's touch briefly on Víctor Valdés. You must remember him, of course, a crazy goalkeeper, if you like, who became one of the top goalkeepers in the world under the regime of Pep Guardiola. He said that with him he learned a lot about football. He felt that before Pep Guardiola he was just a guy, a shot stopper. But he started to understand the game. He started to predict things happening in the game, anticipate, being a proactive goalkeeper. And before his knee injury that took him away from Barcelona, ended up, as you remember, at Middlesbrough with Caranca, and also at Manchester United. But by then, his best form had gone. And anyway, he's not one to accept defeat, and he still wanted to stay at football. And he was signed by Barcelona to be part of the juvenile team that played the Champions League, the Youth Champions League, and of course fought for the league in Spain. Now, I saw the press conference when he first arrived, in which he was trying to say, I've got a philosophy. It doesn't matter what Barcelona are doing here. I've got a philosophy. I do things my own way. And by the time you hear this, you probably may realize that he has been sacked. That is the expectation. Because he wanted to do things his own way. He didn't want to be part of a coaching team, even when they went for dinners, as they did last week. He just wanted to do his own way. I heard a story about, after the game, there were, I think, 3 representatives of the media, and the press officer said to him, this is after a youth game, right, let's do the press conference here, standing up. I said, what, standing up? My table. Where's my table? Where's the chair? I want to be having a chair between the media and me, and a table and a chair to sit down on. You know, he wanted the same way he says that he wanted to treat his own players as professionals. He wanted everything to look very professional. Perhaps not too crazy a demand, but in any case, it was the kind of standards that he had put to everybody when Barcelona, I think, needs developers, people that make players better, and I feel that Víctor Valdés not only wanted to do his own way, he perhaps didn't understand his role at the club. He had a fight with Patrick Kluivert last Friday, and out of which it was leaked to the press that Víctor Valdés was going to be sacked. He didn't travel to go to Nàstic Tarragona to play Nàstic. And basically, I think we'll hear that he'll be sacked. But why did Víctor Valdés was brought into the team, into the club? Because Barcelona, and Bartomeu in particular, wants to be surrounded by names that everybody will recognize. Patrick Kluivert is the head of the academy. He wanted Carles Puyol to be the director of football. He said no, Carles Puyol, he said no to that, and wants a Bayern Munich, if you like, at Barcelona. The problem is, most people will agree with me that there is not a clear idea of what he wants to do with the club. And without that clear idea, I don't think people want to invest their prestige and name into joining forces with Barcelona right now. Seems a shock to hear that, but perhaps Bartomeu will need to define exactly what he wants to do to actually convince all those big names to join the club. Eventually, a lot of people want to see the likes of Piqué as president. As you know, he's bought a club, Andorra, who's now in Second B in Spain, and he's got a big dealings with the Copa Davis. wants his own Copa Davis, if you like, and also he's making an intermediate with Saudi Arabia and the Federation for Saudi Arabia to host the Spanish Super Cup in the summer. So he's getting involved in all kinds of things. So he could be president, Carlos Puyol, director of football, Xavi as a coach. That's the dream for many. But somebody at the top, the president or the one that wants to put all this together, will have to have enough authority and will have to have a clear idea what he wants to do before all these names get involved in the club. Real Madrid now, and they beat Granada. They went 3-0 up, and then Granada came back 3-2. It was 4-2 at the end with a goal from James in the last few seconds of the game. But generally, you started to see Real Madrid that is playing better, but also has got weaknesses. Now, out of all the good things that happened to Real Madrid, one is ahead of any other. And I will do a special video for La Liga TV, which those of you that have got La Liga channel will be able to watch. And it is an analysis of Fede Valverde. This is an Uruguayan midfielder that Zidane trusts so much that he let the likes of Ceballos go, or Llorente as well, centre midfielder, holding midfielder, because Zidane feels that Fede Valverde, although being another Casemiro, a holding midfielder is not his best role, is an all-rounder midfielder. And you start to see why. Against Atletico Madrid, he played from the start, but he was very shy. He just didn't do much with the ball. He was just making sure that no mistakes were committed and defensively just fulfilling a role that Zidane had asked him to do. That game was a draw, partly down to that midfield, that solid midfield of Real Madrid. Against Granada, you started to see him shaking off that shyness and still recovering possession. But when he had the possession, he's got the look of a box-to-box player, which Real Madrid hasn't got anymore. Because Kroos and Modric are more positional, they're happier, running a little bit less. Valverde, on the other hand, has got as I said, runs a lot, runs with intelligence, and has got a lot of quality driving with the ball or passing, and has got strength as well to recover possessions. He did it 8 times during the game, lost possession a few times, but in any case, you've got somebody that is going to grow. If he had 4 or 5 games in a row, and I think he will start the Clásico, and I'm telling you this before the international break, you're going to have a midfielder that you can trust and you can count on. He's only 21, but I think he's got a lot of personality and will mix really well with Casemiro and whoever else Zidane wants to play. Of course, Kroos is injured, could be out for 3 weeks, maybe out for the Clásico. It could easily be Modric, Casemiro and Valverde in the centre midfield for Real Madrid. Real Madrid that hasn't got a lot of midfielders, that Isco is dropping his level big time, but he's not a midfielder, neither is James, neither is Bale. So out of the possible starters, you've got the 3 of them, I think, that may start against Barcelona. But Fede Valverde, keep an eye on him. He has been a superb addition to the midfield of Real Madrid, and he's paid off the trust that basically Zidane has put on him. The last note will be about Spurs, because it comes on the back of a dreadful week, that defeat against Bayern and also against Brighton, and of course the injury to Hugo Lloris. And what that means on the pitch as well, perhaps the lack of leadership and a trustworthy player. And all in all, it just looks like the cracks have been exposed. Cracks that have been hidden for a long while. The run to the Championship final was hiding the fact that the team was losing in energy, in capacity to come back from goals conceded, on a team that didn't defy destiny, if you like. If things were going bad, it was difficult to see things turning around. But you say that sometimes they did, against Southampton, for instance, playing with 10, but they didn't do it for long enough or consistently enough. They've lost 19 of the last 41 games, which in all competitions, which is a terrible stat. But I just feel, and I said it all along, that it's usual. You can almost put like a patron, like a plan ahead when things are going to go wrong, because it tends to happen with every club. When things go wrong, especially in England, the one to blame is the manager, and the stories of players being unsettled and being unhappy start to appear in the press It happens. That's how it goes. And I think you've seen an era of resignation from Pochettino when he talks about these kind of things, because that's how football goes. He's got to be criticized now because that's the results suggest that things are wrong. In this time of chaos, calmness is important. And also, what's important, and I think this is something that you've seen it coming, is that things don't get worse. What I mean by that is that last season, especially with the 2 transfer windows with no new players coming in, the main target was, okay, how do we do it with the same team, with the same people? How do we maintain the level? And the conclusion was, let's just give us a couple of steps back, because if we own them in the way that we have been in previous years, we will hurt each other. So it was more about putting a blind eye to certain things that were happening because they couldn't be changed by putting another player, for instance. So this year and right now it's also about not doing more damage than is possible, that it can possibly take place. For instance, against Bayern, you would say the strongest team played, no? At the back, it was the usual suspects, if you like. Perhaps the form suggests that they shouldn't be there, and they have to be blamed for some of the goals, not all of them, of course. But if you had put Davidson and Foyth, for instance, instead of Toby and Bertogen, what would have people said if the result was the same, that there was a bad decision by the manager? So you had the veterans, you had the usual players, but they just did not deliver. I'm sure that there are small mistakes that the players can count on as responsible, that the manager can count on as responsible as well. A bad choice of a player, a bad pass. Those are small mistakes that can be corrected, more or less. Then there is more serious mistakes, which have to do with players perhaps not wanting to, all of them, do as they get told, because they don't want to come out of the comfort zone, because they do it in the way that their intuition tells them to do. So instead of, playing from the back, just they play it long and then destroy that building from the back that's so important for Spurs. Or instead of giving 2 steps forward for pressure high, they just go back because they're in fear of what could happen when they get attacked. A lot of things that have to do with the essence of what the team is that have been abandoned. A lot of people talk about pressure high, but I think that's been changing the last couple of years, not just because of the lack of energy within the team, which I think it is important, but also because White Hart Lane was smaller, and in the last 2 years playing in Wembley and playing in the new White Hart Lane is a bigger pitch, but also as well because the way that the squad has been formed, you see more defenders. I think they've got 11 defenders right now, so you've got to play those. And that means as well changing the 3-4-3 formation in different variations that for a while Spurs played, especially when they played with that high pressure and high intensity, to a more 5 at the back or 4 at the back and 3 or 4 in the midfield, which doesn't allow you to pressure high so much. So the defensive block has to be dropped a little bit deeper. All those things are important, as well as, of course, players have got 2 or 3 or 4 years more than when they peaked or when they were at the best. So you've got all these circumstances, as I said, small errors, bigger errors, but then there is the structural errors, which are so difficult to change. And I think there was 2 ways of understanding the team and what had to be done. I think you heard for 2 years now Pochettino saying that he wanted to start a new chapter. That has not happened because, for business reasons mostly, but also football reasons, Daniel Levy and the club as an institution have decided to go in a different way. So 2 people understood what had to happen in different ways. Obviously that doesn't help if there is no common ground being found and one vision succeeds over the other. I've got the impression that Daniel Levy now perhaps feels that should have listened to Pochettino a little bit more. Nobody can tell you that what Pochettino wanted to do would have been the perfect solution, but it would have been a refreshing of ideas and a refreshing of personnel much earlier than is taking place now, which could have avoided this. A new chapter could have started. I remember doing the Pep Guardiola book that I found out that Pep Guardiola rang both Alex Ferguson and Rafa Benitez to say, when players are not listening anymore. What do you do? Do you go or do you get rid of the players? And both Ferguson and Rafa Benitez said to him, you get rid of the players. You need the backing of the club, but get rid of the players. Instead, at that point, Pep Guardiola decided to actually leave Barcelona. But if he had to find the same situation at Manchester City, he will have the possibility of renewing the squad if he wanted to, because I think he also feels that's the best thing to do. Well, that hasn't happened at Spurs, and we've seen the consequence of it. How you turn that around? My choice would be for Daniel Levy to say, okay, I made a mistake with perceptions. Let's rebuild this. Let's get rid of some players. Instead of, some of them have renewed their contracts with the idea of selling them on, but nobody's buying them. So maybe it will be about making a business decision that has to do with renewing a squad. That you have to invest. You lose money when you do that. So let's see if the club is willing to do that with a manager that has shown that can already do a recycle of a squad. He did do that when he first arrived. I'm very sure that he's capable of doing it again. That's it. Remember to subscribe, and of course, there's a podcast being prepared. Should be out in a few weeks. Keep an eye on it. Pure Football Podcast, and I hope you enjoy it. Meanwhile, I'll talk to you soon. Bye.